That's what
They don't know.
They don't move, okay. Well,
That's weird. It's glued to the field. I did it. I mean, you know how I feel about it.
And again, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to say that I really
I did a 5-minute like impassioned.
If you. That y'all are both on this campus. Don't ever think that you were a friend of mine. Oh. Does that mean?
That's what I just said. Are we good to go?
No. Oh, there we go. Maybe it is us.
It is.
We're on with that. So it should be fine once we get it.
I'll say it.
No, it's just a test. They're running now.
Oh, okay, so we're good.
Correct.
I just wanted to let you know that Adele isn't gonna be here tonight. He had an emergency and I'll be chairing tonight. And we've only approved minutes. And then Sam stopped working. So you haven't missed anything.
Proud as you because I wasn't as in touch with admin at the time.
And we did find out we can order
I
the chair
think they
bases
got
on
the
theme park.
At least it sounds loud. Hopefully they'll be able to hear.
What you call them?
$1,300.
Board of, regular reading.
Yeah, well, and the money, people who donate,
Oh.
what they want is.
closed.
Why they don't.
Because that girl that comes speaking at.
Somebody asked.
Which,
None of us were on the board when that happened, so I don't
but he
know.
was listening to the students.
The states, I don't know, but you can't start the meeting legally without, you can start the meeting without it
Like, I
being
think SGA.
live broadcast.
But you know,
You don't have to have it.
Oh.
If you want. I don't know how long the delay is. Does the library close at 7? 8. Oh, okay. What?
Library paper.
So this-
Like if we have to delay.
That was true. No.
Yeah, it was Kate's graduation, and I don't know if you.
Well, she thought they closed at 7.
Okay, I think we're all.
Okay.
All right, so, thank you for everybody online that has been patient. If you're watching, we have done the call to order and the approval of minutes. We're gonna move into, training and presentations. We have a traffic data presentation from Captain, is it Stevens?
Yes.
Okay, Captain Stevens, and he's gonna present the board with the citation data as requested. And if I could have everyone that's presenting sit kind of in these chairs down here so we can catch you on the mic. Thank you so much.
I'll speak loud from right here.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Captain Jason Stevens from the Wichita Police Department. I am assigned to the Central Patrol Bureau. One of my functions there is to oversee the traffic section or traffic operations. With me here is Lieutenant Keith Fort. He is the watch commander in the same bureau, and he oversees traffic operations as well. I'm gonna present to you the Wichita Police Department's traffic safety strategy. I have some bullet points here that I just want to cover so I don't miss anything. Captain Cooley will be able to go over the traffic data or statistics specifically after that. So without any further ado, we'll take some questions afterwards from the board, but Keith and I do have another engagement, so we'll have to kind of keep it short. But on to the traffic safety strategy. The chief asked us to develop a strategy for the Wichita Police Department, and that's what we did. The purpose of our strategy is to identify and to focus on areas with the highest likelihood of addressing citizen complaints, reducing wrecks or crashes, and increasing public safety foremost. We want to promote education and awareness through proactive and directed patrols and using special assignments whenever needed to achieve that goal. And our primary goal, of course, is to make Wichita streets safe and to make traffic safety a core value of the Wichita Police Department. Our methods, we want to be data-driven. We are data-driven. We use a data-driven method to identify high collision locations or intersections in the city in each of the patrol bureaus, each of the 4 patrol bureaus. We want to do that through high visibility or police presence at those locations to hopefully prevent wrecks by our mere presence. We want to also use targeted enforcement or targeted education strategies at those locations, and to use our CompStat platform to discuss with our bureau partners, our other commanders, and basically to be able to evaluate the success or failures, and failure isn't the word that I want to use, but our successes and future deployment strategies moving forward. We also want to try to be multi-jurisdictional whenever we can, and bring in outside partners like the Sheriff's Office or KHP whenever they can bring resources that can enhance what we're doing. And again, just focus on location-oriented strategies. Our strategy or our philosophy, of course, is traffic safety being our highest priority. And the vision is creating a coordinated department-wide effort by all department members that include our traffic officers, our community police officers, our patrol officers, and even SROs and other specialty units throughout the city. So what we've done is we partnered with our crime analyst section and came up with a identification method to figure out where are these high location or high crash locations in the city. They've been able to use crime analysis data to create a reliable collection tool that helps us determine as accurately as we can where those locations are. We use survey data going back 12 months. So we had a very large pool of information from our RMS system to kind of help us identify these high crash sites or locations. And I put a threshold of 15 intersections or aggregate zones, as I'll describe here in a minute, per bureau. So we had, so we're actually capturing the really high crash locations and getting down deep enough into the data so we're not missing any, potential safety issues. In our analysis, I want to overlap our DUI data with our high crash data so that maybe we can use that to focus some of our DUI enforcement efforts in the right locations as well. So onto the locations and identification. It consists of intersections and the adjacent 100 blocks that immediately surround those intersections, because it's not just what happens in the intersection, but what happens in that very close proximity. I brought up the term aggregate zones, as I termed it, and we identified what I call aggregate zones, which are districts or areas that contain clusters of high crash intersections or districts or areas that we noticed very clearly. And basically what those are, they consist of business districts primarily, or another big example would be the Central Business District at Kellogg. The intersections of Main Market, Broadway, Topeka are all clustered right there together. And although Broadway stands out very clearly as one of the highest wreck intersections in the city, Topeka Broadway or Topeka Market, Emporia, they're not incredibly far behind. So why not focus on that entire area instead of just on Kellogg and Broadway, and try to influence the traffic flow or the behaviors in that area. Other examples of aggregate zones before I move on would be like the Bradley Fair Shopping District, the Pawnee Plaza Shopping District, which is Broadway and Pawnee, Broadway, Topeka, Emporia. We've seen that all of those areas have a high concentration of crashes. And a lot of it is associated with the ingress and egress of traffic in and out of those business districts. 47th Street South corridor from Hydraulic to Broadway, at many of the intersections along that path, very high in accident concentration. So I hope you kind of get to see the picture. We're wanting to look not only just at individual intersections, but some of these really high aggregate areas to focus our efforts on not only enforcement, but education. So the deployment strategy is very simple. Our crime analysts provide monthly data on high crash locations. And this is an evolving process. We're trying to perfect the types of data that we're wanting, but we like to see past 28-day or 90-day or year-to-date changes in wrecks at locations, primarily and hopefully to see if we're having a positive impact at the places that we've focused our efforts. We also look at day of week and hour of day frequency. And I'll be honest, I was quite surprised when you actually look at the different intersections. Anecdotally, you would just assume that most wrecks happen at morning and evening commute. But each intersection and aggregate zone surprisingly has their very own unique characteristics. With that in mind, then, we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of that knowledge and trying to deploy our resources in those areas at the right time and the right day of week. Our traffic officers, again, as I mentioned, we want to try to focus on the top 15. I don't want to overwhelm us, but we want to get into having an impact, positive impact on the worst of the worst, highest crash locations. We're going to discuss our progress in CompStat meetings with command staff. And this will be an ongoing process where I'm going to be rotating our traffic officers through different bureau responsibilities on a monthly basis. And we're going to not only have them independently focus on these areas, but we're also going to, through supervision review of the data, we're going to direct team assignments with all of the officers to focus on, again, like an area like those aggregate zones, the 47th Street corridor, so that they can, work as a team and have a very large impact on what's going on in that area, and hopefully a positive impact. Something else that we've done, enforcement is one thing, but education, we also want to focus on. We've always had the capability of writing warning citations, but we actually created a specific document that is distinct and visually different than the regular traffic citation. We did that because we wanted to say very boldly that this is a warning citation so that there's no ambiguity, no confusion. And the purpose of having this is I want to use that as an education tool for not only patrol officers, but traffic officers to have in their toolbox to educate without being punitive on the back end. Also on the education front, Sergeant Sanders on our team does social media, which is a Traffic Tip Tuesday media post. And in that, we choose different topics week to week and focus on educating the public on traffic safety issues just traffic safety issues, whether it be bicycle safety, pedestrian safety, or how to make a proper or improper turn at an intersection. Then lastly, of course, our neighborhood complaints. We still want to address neighborhood complaints. However, we also want to address that very strategically and as data driven as we possibly can too. So our neighborhood complaints, we have tools like a stealth stat or radar stations that we can verify in a specific area if there truly is a ongoing or chronic issue. We may do that through personal observation. And I've even, we're gonna employ, with the help of our CP teams when possible, we may even do surveys in a small focused area to verify what the problem in that area is. And again, once verification is made, then we'll focus efforts on education and enforcement there. And yeah, I mean, in a very short, condensed sense, that is what Lieutenant Fort and our team have come up with on how we're going to move forward with our traffic safety strategy in the city. Yes.
So thank you for being here. I heard a lot about who you all are and what you all do, which I'm very appreciative of. However, is there any data that you brought to present?
No, we didn't bring any data to present. Captain Cooley does have some data.
Yeah, I have,
And he'll cover
that. He's
that?
just here to talk about the strategy that his traffic unit's doing. I
Okay.
have the data.
Okay.
This is just a question, just as a driver. When you target these areas, and I'm sure it's a dumb question, but when you target these areas that you're saying are high wreck areas or high crash areas, does that go to the city the city planner? Are they changing the way streets, some of those, like, we know streets that are too short, so does that get connected to how the streets are being built or changed?
I'm very glad you asked that question because I forgot to mention that and I intended to. Right now, and we've only been doing it for fatality incidents, wrecks. We do have a monthly meeting with the city engineers, and we discuss in detail the dynamics of those wrecks, those fatality wrecks. But that is part of the strategy, and I'm sorry, I did forget to mention that. We want to slowly incorporate that concept into this as well. Kellogg and Rock is a perfect example of, I think Kellogg and Rock is, if I'm not mistaken, the #1 location in the city when it comes to number of traffic wrecks. So that is a prime candidate to bring in the traffic engineers and figure out what's happening at this intersection and if there's anything that can be done from a physical change of the roadways or the traffic flow or the light cycles or, whatever, because they're the experts in that. I'm not. So yes, bringing them in is it's part of our intention. Are we going to be able to do it at every intersection on a frequent period of time? No, we're going to try to be strategic about systematically trying to solve these problems. But yes, thank you for asking that. And yes, we do have that in mind.
I've literally had a student make a documentary over the lights at Kellogg and Rock, a 10-minute documentary. So when you guys are driving around, I've wondered this, and you're sitting in a light that makes no sense, like right there by the mall, to you like 5 times before you can make a turn on it or whatever. Do you guys report? I'm just curious, who's reporting when the lights are ridiculously long to sit there? Or
And
ridiculously short? This is a personal question from me.
That is a traffic engineer issue. I mean, there's a mechanical box at the corner of every intersection that controls the cycling of those
Because I bet that
lights.
annoys you guys too. You're out driving all the time.
So
Yeah, that's bad right there.
They're aware.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. I
That's
didn't
in my
know. I've never
neighborhood,
even thought
so
about that.
they're aware.
There's a lot of them. Some of them are super short.
I had a question that I
Yes.
think might be basic, but one that I didn't hear. About how long has this traffic safety strategy been implemented?
So we developed it in spring, and of course, we had
Spring last year?
spring of 24
Okay.
is when it was originally developed. We've really only been able to start it early summer of 2024. And as I mentioned before, it's an evolving, we are still making some changes and improvements to it. And one of those recent changes is the team assignments that we're really focusing on now. So it's been a learning process, but we're gonna continue moving forward and we're gonna continue making it, more efficient.
Now, I'm sorry, please.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I understand we're supposed to get traffic data every 3 months, if I remember
Quarterly.
right. Quarterly. So the next time would be May. I wonder if we couldn't have you guys back with about a year of data and see what the effect of this aggregate zones has been.
I serve at the pleasure of the chief, so, I will do whatever is necessary, at his discretion.
We can make a recommendation and have it in the notes.
I would like that. Thank you.
You mentioned citizens complaints. Are those like people who are racing up and down streets, or what kind of complaints do you get from citizens that are incorporated in this data?
Well, we get citizens complaints from a lot of different sources. Some of them come in, as tips, online. Some of them are direct calls to either us or their respective patrol bureaus. And I'm sure, and you probably are aware of some other avenues, but there's a lot of ways that we receive citizens complaints. And again, yes, a lot of them could be running stop signs at a specific location or speeding up and down the street. I think is probably one of the most common ones.
And there's an online form that you can fill out to submit complaints, and they'll come to me and I'll put those out to the officer when they come in.
Where can we find that?
I believe it's on the website on Wichita.gov. We can get with Captain Cooley and get it to you.
Okay. And then if there's no more questions, I have a question. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. In the very beginning, you said reducing citizen complaints, accidents, and what was the third?
I'm sorry, what? was
You
the
said
question?
the three under the strategy had three main things. Identifying and focusing a way to reduce citizen complaints, accidents, and then I didn't get the third one.
Oh, okay, yeah, addressing citizens' complaints, reducing crashes and increasing public safety.
Public safety,
basically,
thank you.
is what
Okay.
we're- I mean, that's our
Addressing,
ultimate
not
goal.
reducing.
Yeah, we don't want to reduce public safety. And so my question about metrics was already answered. My question about public works and non-police solutions has already been answered. I would ask, how is this progress going to be shared with the public as far as like what those intersections are? You know, you said it was 15, you know, showing the trends of reduction. Is that going to be on that same website where we're going to show what that looks like, or how will the public see that?
And I can work with our executive staff and Captain Cooley, and we can come up with something on that. But right now, I don't know. I mean, we haven't really gotten that far into
Yeah, no
anything
worries.
public facing. This is still we're still in what I would say, a developmental stage. I mean, we've developed the strategy and we're still working on ways that we can get better at implementing it.
Perfect. And then I saw that you said the new warning citation and that new doc to kind of help share education. Does that include the new suspended / revocation bill and moving people, like educating them about the warp office? So if they do get pulled over on suspended, letting them know that there's a resource in the city that can help them and not just a ticket or.
We cannot issue a warning for driving suspended. So the warning citation wouldn't be out.
Oh, no, I just meant education.
Well, and if there's any literature or brochures, and we're still actually out actively seeking educational materials to not only share on our Traffic Tip Tuesday, but I have the concept in mind of having brochures of some sort to hand out at traffic stops, but we haven't gotten to that developmental stage just yet.
No worries. I just wanted to throw that out there that the clerk, Nathan Emery, would probably be happy to share that information with you. And then
You said
find
Nathan Emery?
Nathan Emery, yeah,
Okay,
he's the
yes, I
clerk
know
of,
he is.
oh, yeah. And then finally, the neighborhood complaints, as far as like through the CPs, is that where we would tell them about like the high-speed motorcycles or, you know, the car racing, or is that kind of in the strategy?
Yes, I mean, any of those neighborhood or specific complaints that don't necessarily fall already in one of the high accident locations. In a way, we'll handle them the same way we did before. We'll work hand in hand with our community policing officers. But we do, and we will continue to develop ways to confirm that the problem does exist. And then work on ways that we can educate the neighborhood and, you know, when necessary, use enforcement to address those issues.
Thank you. Any other questions? I know that they have to be somewhere.
And
Thank
just,
you, guys.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your time, everyone.
Sorry, did you wanna?
oh, I just wanted to say, Captain Cooley did send us the traffic data. I got the email.
Yeah, I can either talk about it
Thank
now
you
or
so
do it in
much.
my section, whatever, however you guys want.
I think because we're talking about citation data, maybe now would be a good time to present it before public comment. What do you guys think? Okay, that's loud.
So Vincent, did you send that to everybody then?
No, just you, Dave.
Oh, okay. I can send it out to the board. It looks like you got it from the home site. Is that from the city's home?
Yeah, I just got it from the city website.
Okay. So if you go either Vince's link, which is on the home, I went through the Wichita Police Department website, and then you have to click on forms on the side. It drops down, and there's all kinds of forms. You can, our autism form program, animal control, handicap parking program, a swatting alert, vacation if you're leaving your residence and you want us to come check your residence while you're gone. In that is a traffic complaint form. It takes you to the same link, so it looks like we probably have it twice, one on the main city hub and then one on the police hub, but it's essentially the same thing.
I'll go ahead and forward this to you so that you can just send it out to the board so everybody has it.
Okay.
And you can, and essentially, if you got a hold of your community policing officer, it's the same, like we just fill out the form for you, I guess is the simpler way to say it. We take it and we fill out the form for you, so. It is called a note complaint, which is an acronym for the neighborhood oriented traffic enforcement, so. To piggyback on what Captain Stevens was talking about, he mentioned stealth stat. I assume probably don't know what that is, right? So when he's talking about verifying a complaint in a neighborhood, oftentimes, so an unposted neighborhood is 30 miles an hour. Well, that, if you're standing outside, that looks fast as the car is driving 30 miles an hour. So we have technology that we can deploy in a complaint area. And as vehicles are driving over it, it is counting and tracking speeds and times of day and what they're actually doing. So if the problem was actually at 6 PM, we can see that and not be out there at 10 AM when it doesn't make sense. I will say oftentimes we do pull that data from that device and it shows maybe we've only had 1 or 2 cars going 40 miles an hour, but we understand visually 30 looks like a lot in a residential neighborhood, but in fact, we don't have very many violations to go address it. So that's what a stealth stat is. It essentially is a device we can put out there without putting an officer out there to measure, is this really a problem? And if so, when should we go out there and address it?
I imagine the case number and the ticket number is blank because we don't want to identify it back to specifics.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you're looking at, so
No?
if you're looking at the traffic data, that is the raw data, unmanipulated except for blocking out the traffic number and the case number. And that is, just like you said, for open records, we don't want to put the case number out of all these people's traffic stops and everything else. So if, and it's 400 pages, so I did not print thousands and thousands of pages. But I was able to shrink the columns and rows to get it onto 1 page. So if you have a desire to print, it was 1,300 pages. So,
The earth thanks you.
yeah, if they're highlighted in red, there is a, I guess, duplication for lack of a better term. So if you look at the first 2 rows, if my memory serves me correct, that is the same traffic stop with the same individual, but they had 2 violations. I think it was like speeding or run red light and a suspended or something. So it highlighted it in red. Does that make sense? So it's the same person. It's not two different people being stopped. And then with the raw data, we put them in 4 charts for you. Yeah, I realize on the phone it's not.
No, this is great.
I
Yeah,
mean,
this is great. I don't expect a 400-page
if you were
printed
going to
report.
Kinko's, it was-
Thank you.
I don't even know if it's Kinko's anymore. So front and back. One side is Q4, as promised. So one side is Q4, so October through December. Broken down by the bureaus. And this is part of Captain Stevens's strategy plan to look at where each bureau is. Now, you know, east side and west side has Kellogg, which if you look at a map, is almost every intersection's a high intersection. So you're gonna see some correlation in some of the data on what I say is the backside, since we hadn't provided data in a while, I think. We provided Q4 data for the charts. We did not send the raw data. That would, I mean, you're looking at 1,500 pages probably at least of Q4 data. But this is the chart based on all of 2024's on the other side.
Quick question is, so, if I'm understanding this, is Hispanic lumped into white?
So the Hispanic is not considered a race, it's an ethnicity.
Right.
So it is lumped into white.
Okay.
Unless we're on this is where I could get in the weeds with the data. Unless we stop someone who says, I'm Black and Hispanic, well, we can't just say Hispanic because that's not a race. So then they would be marked Black on the citation. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's almost they have to kind of self-identify to tell us which one.
However, you have the data by Hispanic and non-Hispanic, so you
So-
could get that information out from the
Yeah.
white data.
As long as they tell us. So we could produce the same chart out of the white column is what I think you're asking. But it's only gonna identify what we know from people who've told us. Does that make sense? So if you stop me and I don't tell you that I'm Hispanic, the officer's not gonna know. Does that make sense? But the information we do have that we were told on a car stop, we could pull that out of white to say these were the ones that actually identified as Hispanic.
But how often does that happen? What percent, just wild guess, what ballpark would
It's on
you?
our citations and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
ask.
So you do
Oh,
have
you
some.
do
We
ask.
ask pretty much all the time.
So are these all the primary stops or are these,
This
is that the correct word, like secondary, where they get tickets after for something that was already found after the stop?
This is all traffic stops, but you can't have a secondary without a primary. So even if they were stopped for, I don't know, improper turn, but they wrote a improper turn, but they weren't wearing their seatbelt and the officer decided to write them a seatbelt. Technically a secondary
Right.
violation, right? Because you needed well, I guess with seatbelt, it is a primary violation, but I think you
But they
understand what
wouldn't
I'm
have
saying.
known if they hadn't.
Correct,
Okay.
unless we see, as we're driving by, like clearly no seatbelt, maybe that was a bad example, but, car seats, okay, we can't tell that there's no car seat in there until we stop you and go up to the car, right? So if the officer decides, I'm not gonna write you for the improper turn, but you need to have a car seat, it would still be listed on there as, because they're getting a ticket, does that make sense? So it is primary and secondary if we're breaking it down into those terms.
So the word like pretextual stop, that would be if a secondary violation was written, but no first violation was written.
No, pretextual is, so if, you're right.
It's a legal term.
Sorry, I hear that
It
a
is a
lot, so I just
term.
wanna ask how that would be
Yes.
reflected in the
So-
data.
Pretextual is more of you are suspicious of something, of some other activity. If I'm watching a narcotics house and a vehicle stops and someone runs into the front door, I'm interested in that vehicle, right? I think there's something going on. I'm clearly watching this house. Someone's now making an unusual movement. They're in and out. Maybe I want to follow that vehicle. If they run a red light, that's a pretextual stop, right? I've already predetermined I'm interested in that vehicle. Just motorcycles driving around, you know, or strategically on Kellogg or speeders is not pretextual. So a secondary doesn't have anything to do with pretextual. Secondary is something found during, you didn't have insurance, you're driving on suspended, whatever.
I don't know if this is too much to request, but since this is so many pages worth of documentation, is there a way that you all can, display the charge types as it is on
Oh,
here?
like a pie chart?
Oh, yeah,
Do you have-
percentage of,
Or can you tell
doing the
me?
exact same thing, is that what you're asking, but just with charge types?
Yeah, or can you tell me like what areas do you see? Is it more misdemeanors? Is it more speeding? Is there an area that you see more commonly that you are charging or giving out citations for?
Yeah, so there's usually a top 5, and it's usually the 5 everywhere in the city, and it's your speedings, it's your turn violations, your stop signs, those same ones. I didn't produce a chart based on that this time, but it's the same theory of how we produce the charts based on these. You know, you just run it, we can put it in a chart. So yeah, for next month, I mean, I can bring a chart that specifically says, here's the, I don't know if you want all of them, your chart may get pretty tiny, maybe the top 5.
I think top 5 is fine.
Of these are the top 5 violations that were in Q4.
Can you do it by?
Although top 5, we probably already know, just like you said.
Yeah, it's gonna be familiar, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's more so like just trying to take all of this and compare it of charge types by, I guess it's asking a little bit much of separating it by charge types, or even if you can like separate these out in these documents of, here are all the charge types with their information attached to them. Or excuse me, here are all the misdemeanors with their information, cause here, I think these are these by date or how are these separated out by here?
I'd have to pull up the raw data. and see
Okay,
how it's
'cause-
built.
I think it is by date.
Cause just here for me, I'm having to scroll and then
No, it's
see
not.
misdemeanor infraction, blah, 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 blah. Whereas I guess maybe I'm trying to see if you can do all the misdemeanors on these pages here with their information, all the infractions here with their information. And you can still give me something like this, but I can still scroll through. I just don't know if that's possible on your end.
How hard is
I
it
would
to
say-
get the spreadsheet?
I was gonna
Sorry.
say, I think we can probably export this into an Excel spreadsheet and sort.
That's fair too.
Yeah,
Then we can search for whatever we want.
I'm willing to help with whatever.
If we can do that, then that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an Adobe converted spreadsheet, so yeah.
I know I would be happy to like sort it by also location. I would be
Yeah,
curious to
that's-
see
That was
that.
just what I was thinking
Yeah.
about when I was going through some of these addresses. There
Yeah.
are several and they're red, so there are probably multiple violations, but it would be interested to see even by like, I don't know, zip code or, well, I don't know how you would divide it or what that breakdown would be.
If I may make a suggestion, instead of converting a 400-page Excel document into a PDF next time, maybe either linking us to like a document, or that way we can just all sort it and filter it and get whatever we want and you don't have to do all the extra work.
Well, we should be able to convert a PDF to an Excel. I mean, I do that all the time.
I mean, I don't have Excel at home because I don't pay for it.
Is this a year-long worth of data?
I have Google Sheets. so-
This, what's in your email is Q4. a year's worth of data is, I mean,
This is
two
all
thousand
quarter
some
four.
pages, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
When you look at
I
the whole
can
city of
imagine.
Wichita, that doesn't necessarily surprise me.
So
That-
can I ask, what is, the police department doing with this Q4 data? Are you looking at the amount of, the percentage of minorities in the city versus how many tickets they're getting, what kind of money they're paying? I mean, what happens with this data?
Yeah, so we never look at what kind of money they're paying. We're not in that business of how much fines are. We don't set any of those. We don't have anything to do with those. So what we look at it is, are we enforcing equitably across all the bureaus? That is where what Captain Stevens was talking about. We are going one step further and we are overlaying where are the high accident locations based on where is the enforcement. Because if you look at just Q4, its chart, you would think that east side and west side, well, you're getting 60% of enforcement. But if you looked at the high accident locations, like I said, it's going to be Kellogg and Rock, Kellogg, all the way down Kellogg in Ridge is a big one. They try and make both those lights. So we take, are we splitting it up equitably in each of the bureaus? Because each community is wanting the same thing. Please cut down on traffic accidents in our bureau, whether it's on Kellogg for speeders or whether it's foot traffic on Central and Hillside. It's the same concept. So we break it down like this, and then we overlay it with where are the high accident locations. The bigger the bubble, the more accidents are there. Then that's where his team goes back and actually looks at when are those accidents.
So is this the racial profiling data that was requested? Because what we would be then questioning would be, are you looking at in areas, are there more of a minority group? Is that being looked at that are receiving tickets? Because it does come back to money in many communities if they're paying more money, if they're getting pulled over more often, which for some communities is a way to make cash. So I am curious of the racial profiling piece.
So
Not that it's happening.
yeah.
Does the data show it's happening? Is that being looked at?
Yeah, so we compare it from data that has been pulled in the past. This doesn't show any change. And in 21, that's when we had the study done at WSU. And Dr. Berger essentially said the same thing in that. So the data has been consistent with even Dr. Berger's study of there's no evidence to say that is occurring. So we're not gonna go out and say it is unless the study comes back and would say that, right? That's why we've added in that other compound of where are the accidents? That's the focus.
Well, we do have 11% from the census African Americans in the city of Wichita with 20% tickets by race. So I mean, that's almost double.
Yeah, so in Dr. Berger's study, he outlines how the census, comparing that to the census study is unreliable and why you shouldn't compare that to that, so that we don't compare that to the census. Plus, like, for example, we get a lot of complaints by WSU. Well, people are coming to basketball games from all over the place, so we would have to somehow get in the deep weeds of who is stopped. Is it a basketball game? Is it not a basketball game? Are they students? Are they not students? And we're working a neighborhood complaint at the same time of someone who filed the complaint there also, which then gives us an obligation to come there. So we don't compare it to the census based on all the studies, even by Dr. Berger, that has said it's not reliable and you shouldn't do that. So we don't.
So how do you, if, I'm gonna just make numbers up, but if 25% of the population is purple and 75% of the population is pink, but 40% of the tickets are for purple people, and we don't use the census, how do we determine if the purple people are being over policed or not?
So we had that discussion and and even Dr. Berger would say the same thing. It comes down to being able to track who is being stopped. So same theory at WSU. How do we track? Where are you going? Is this even your neighborhood? And then how many licensed drivers are actually out there? That also becomes problematic because it doesn't mean everybody driving is actually a licensed driver. So that is also hard to compare the data to how many licensed, Hispanic drivers do we have? Well, is that how many's on the road? I don't know how
A few
we
extras out there.
gauge that. So that's where it becomes problematic to say, how do we get the data to say exactly this is the people from our community, not just here visiting, just people in our community. Where are they being stopped? What's the frequency? Where are they going? How do you encompass all of that? We have done studies or a survey where the officers are on a car stop are also having to conduct a survey out there. I wasn't a part of that, but my understanding is it showed basically the same results is my understanding. We did it twice, yeah.
So then what data set are you using then that says we're not over policing one community or another? If not, so the census is problematic, so then which
Yeah.
figures do you use?
So that's why we hired Dr. Berger to conduct that study in 21
Sure.
and let them perform their analysis. And when you read his analysis, he basically says you can't draw a conclusion that you are or are not, but the data matches everything else that's going on nationwide. So that's kind of where the study was. I don't know how you would draw the conclusion if you don't have we would literally have to track who's a visitor, who's not, where are you going? So that's why we hired Dr. Berger to do the analysis. And
Right,
Is
he's
the
saying there's not
report-
one simple data set
yeah,
to
there's
compare
no,
to.
Sure, but if maybe I'm a little lost.
Maybe we need Dr. Berger's.
Well, I was gonna say, where would I find Dr. Berger's
I
report
think
or
Walt send that out. Yes. Walt sent an email today and it actually,
does it discuss his methods and?
I would assume it's the entire study. So I would assume my thought is I want to read that before I ask any more questions.
Oh, that's what I was just
I
getting.
think it sounds like it would be.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Wrong.
point to start. I did not get that.
I was just looking for it.
I'm going to forward those
Oh, I did
documents
see it.
to Greg and make sure that everyone on the board gets it, unless you already have it and then you can take
I
care
have
of it.
it.
Okay. Because it's the executive summary of the analysis. It's the non-moving versus moving, the 2016-2018 citation analysis, not done by Dr. Berger. The one done by Dr. Berger. It's quite a few documents.
And I guess we could always, even if after reading this, maybe our next meeting discuss reaching out to Dr. Berger. He may be willing to come and speak with us as a community service. He can add it to.
I'll put that down as another recommendation.
And I just received an email from Dr. Berger earlier today, so I wouldn't mind reaching out to him via email. at
That's
some
not
point.
even.
Okay.
Unless there's
I don't
any
do
other
it.
questions, I'd like to wrap up the citation component.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah,
Captain Cooley, can you explain in the 2024 ticket by bureau, the undefined, what criteria would put a citation in the undefined versus east, west, north, south?
yeah, so this is all reliant on the officer's input on the data. The patrol bureaus in the beat is also relying on them to input, but then when it goes in the system should auto-correct some of that. So when you look at the raw data, there are some that are blank. But they truly do belong in a bureau, right? You have to, everything in the city belongs to a bureau, but some are blank, where they were left off. I was able to fill in most of them, but some of them just say like US 54. Well, where are you in the city, you know? So that's the undefined
Thank you.
portion of it, yeah.
the question was, will we be having public comment on this item? And I would like to, I will call for people that didn't sign up to be able to give comment on this when I do public agenda. Thank you. My last question would be the same that I gave to the other officers that came. With the new law that's been implemented, will we be, because I saw quite a few suspended, revoked, doesn't have a driver's license, I know 2 years ago, oh wait, how long has the chief been here? 2 years. 2 years ago, the racial profiling board gave the chief a box of cards that sent people to resources. They don't need to do that again because the city has a warp office, so I would just ask, is that something that we could, as a resource, just from your perspective, since I already told them, making sure that people know about that?
Can you real quick say what new law?
Yes, there was a law that was passed allowing people to go into a restricted status if they have their driver's license suspended or revoked for failure to pay fines and fees. So if someone has a DUI, they don't qualify. But if they had their license suspended for that, there's an office that the city started to help people create the motions, fill out the paperwork, do community service, get on a payment plan so they can get on a restricted license to be able to go to work, take their kids to school, go to doctor's appointments, that kind of stuff.
Get insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, and we do, like Second Chance Thursday. Does everyone know what that is?
Mhm.
Okay. So we, what? you
I
know?
don't.
I don't.
Um, so, that is something that we started with, courts. It is joined with, the DMV. There's a whole bunch of entities. The warrant office is there now. It's really expanded a lot. And the whole idea was just that of second chance. Please come. We realize maybe you missed court, maybe you have a warrant for it. But the idea is just to get your license back or to work out something for your fines or whatever that can be done to solve that. So you're not continuously being wrote for the same drive on suspended or whatever. So people are always able to come to second chance, and it moves. I think it was just at a rec center up north, but it moves all over the place, and it's really grown. Courts can do that a lot themselves too, but it's a kind of a one-stop shop. And even the Kansas driver's license place, like they're there to work with people who, listen, it's so suspended, I can't get it back, and then you can go to their booth and they can work with you on getting that back, right? That's the whole idea of it. It's just like our car seat program. If you don't have a car seat, we've got a program where we can help you get car seats. Like, it's just, the idea is we want you to have car seats, you know? We have the Lights On program. That program is still kind of in the ending the funding stage, but it was, if you had headlights out, go to this mechanic, they'll fix your headlight, right? It was just the whole idea of let's help.
And the officers doing the stop or giving that
Yeah.
information out?
Yes. So.
Perfect, thank you. If there's not any other questions on this, I am going to move to the public agenda. Public comments, 5 minutes per speaker and 15 minutes total allowed for this section. And the first commenter I have signed up is Walt Chapel. Sir, if you could just come down here and,
Are you doing the time?
yeah, unless you want to do it.
If you got it.
Nice cold day, huh, folks? We've had a nice breath of winter weather. I love it. I wanted to start out with an old phrase that many of us understand. It's called, gotta make it real, but compared to what? Many of you are old enough to remember that song. It came back, I don't know, back in the 60s, 70s, maybe. But I'm trying to look at data now. I've been doing this for many years, as I've told you before, and I've sent each of you copies of previous studies. This, compared to what Dr. Berza did, what I did, I don't know what this is about. We have asked repeatedly for the last 4 or 5 months before I got off the board and before this presentation today for a relative risk index. What's that for? That gives you a very clear idea of where the majority of the stops are made, what races, where are we so far disproportionately out of line that you can just never ask the question, well, does this relate to census data or not? That's such a bogus concept. We have the data from census for over 100 years, right? It's fairly accurate. And when you compare apples to apples across the country, you can see that blacks are still twice as likely to be stopped, not only in Wichita, but across the country. And in that email I sent out to you today, there's a link to a very detailed documentary called Driving While Black. Please watch it. It'll take you down a path for 400 years. You're gonna say, what the hell is this going? Why are we still doing this? Now, there's an assumption that if you give out more tickets, you're gonna have fewer accidents. The data I analyzed from 135,000 tickets showed that there were actually more accidents when they wrote more tickets than when we dropped down to like 45,000 tickets. So there's no correlation between writing more tickets and stopping accidents. The data that you see here, I told it up while I'm sitting over there on the sideline. Today, you're seeing 15,259 for 2024. That's wonderful. You drop the number of tickets, that's fewer people have to go to court, have to come up with the money, pay for something that had nothing to do with driving safely. It had nothing to do with stopping an accident in most cases. Many of these accidents, when the analysis I did, I showed it, and Dr. Bertha did the same. You have 20 key intersections. Now they're using that concept. Where are most of the accidents taking place? 80% of the accidents occur at 20 key intersections. When you look at those intersections, most of it has to do with turn signals. Does the city provide you long enough to get through that intersection without getting clobbered by the other folks coming forward? Signage along Kellogg. You don't have signage long enough ahead of time to be able to see, okay, here's where you get off for downtown. Here's where you get off for Seneca. Here's where you get off. People are making real quick decisions about where to go. And they run into each other, trying to go from a center lane to the side lane so they can get off in time to not miss their exit. And sure enough, you're gonna have an accident. So that's KDOT. It's not giving more tickets. Dr. Burr's study, as you look at that, he has a whole section about zip codes. There are 4 key zip codes on the east side of town, predominantly white neighborhoods, predominantly black people getting tickets. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. That's not proportional. If you can't drive through a white neighborhood without getting a ticket, that's wrong. I don't know how else you call it. Now you got another situation here where you got moving versus non-moving violations. Some of you raised the question about pretext stops. This has been very much a problem in previous administrations. I think what I'm seeing here with this data, Captain Cooley, I'm seeing 15,000 tickets in 2024. If that's correct, wonderful news. So we've dropped the number of citations you're actually giving out, but you're still disproportionately giving it to black folks. Your data still shows 20 to 22% to black drivers. Now we've had 6 studies, as I mentioned to you before, since year 2000. Every single one, the 2 stop studies they talked about was every stop, whether they got a citation or not. That was in 2001 and 2004. Those were paid for by the city. They had the Wichita State faculty do the analysis. They had the same result. You're still twice as likely to get a ticket. So I'm asking you folks, please read that email. Ask for this police department to come back with something that's got more than just 1 page of a bar chart. This is just craziness. When you compare it to what Dr. Berza did, what I did, the data's there. You don't have to be snowed by 400 pages of data. That's not what this is about. You condense it down. That's why you do the research. I've tried to call
Dr. Chappell.
Jack, just a second here. I'll be right with you. I've been in touch trying to reach Jeff Vail. He's the chief of the data analysis department. They have 5 analysts. I've called him. I talked to Captain Cooley. Each time I've said, can you please get together and let's make sure you present something meaningful to this board. And this is what you get. This is worthless. Please read the other studies. You'll be able to see what you might ask them to actually provide the next time they come to the board, what should be the next quarter. These are supposed to be quarterly reports. Thank you for your
Dr.
time.
Capel. Next I have Robert Green. Hope I said that right. Oh, you signed in. Sorry, you signed up for public comment.
Does he need that?
You can comment with the whole board. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? I was like, wait a minute, I know that name.
Didn't plan on speaking for public comment, but I do want to speak to the previous agenda item that I would like to encourage the board secretary to work together with the staff member who just went off to a little boys room break to make sure that any documents that were sent to the board get posted to the website for the Business Review Board so that all members of the public can get a chance to download the pager, play around, I'm sure Dr. Chapel would love to play around with the actual raw data. We all understand the economy of let's not print out 400 pages, but if we have the ability to pull it down, extract it, and monkey it around and create our own pie charts. So, take care of that, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
And if you could just say your name for the record.
Vincent Hancock for the record.
Thank you, Vincent.
To that point, I have a quick question. The CRB email that I do forward things to, who all receives that? Is it just CRB members or is it
No, there's other people in there.
such as?
So myself, Shanita. Bob, and then, you know.
I thought it was just you and Shanita after I spoke with her.
Yeah.
You want more, you
So I guess my follow-up question to that then is, what does that look like ensuring that it's posted? Because I don't have access to the website, so.
Shanita will help you.
Okay, so I need to
She's
just
something.
essentially send an email to Shanita or,
I would email her with the specific documents that you want posted.
okay. And can you remind me which documents, just the ones that,
You just
Probably
forwarded
just
to all
the
of us.
ones
okay,
I don't know. I think the report from Dr. Berzer, the most recent one, would be a good one to have report. Should be on the CRB page.
just that one or the entire?
I think
email
that's the only
documents?
official one
Okay.
that the city requested. Is that correct, Captain Cooley?
Chief of Police asked for that analysis,
It's
the
on, yeah.
2016 through 18.
Okay, then both of those analyses, the 16 and the 21. The 2016 through 2018 and the one that was done in 21, I think those should be up there because those were asked for by PD. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? All right, then we're gonna move to the next agenda item. We are on new business and we're back to you, Captain Cooley.
So I did print these, they did not get in your packet, the chart, that's really not very helpful. But I did print it, does anybody want it?
Yeah.
What, do you want me to keep printing these and putting them in the? Okay.
I mean, to me, it would need to go in the packet if it went out with the agenda, but I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
So typically it does go out with the
Yeah.
agenda. I think it was just overlooked this time.
Oh, okay.
So, and I did see that, so I did print them just so you guys can have them.
How do you guys feel about that? Are you okay with it coming in an email and not being printed, or do you want both?
I like my paper
Printed.
copy.
Okay, then we'll just keep doing it the way we've been doing it.
So outside of those, I did bring 3 other documents. The chief has asked,
Is it not on the, is that not in the?
No, it's in the packet this time.
No. Here's what's the thing. Sorry.
oh, all right. The chief has asked in our policy review, if you guys, would be willing to provide feedback on 2 of our policies, policy 503. I have them here, so I will hand them out. On policy 503 and 504, it's the homeless outreach team and bias crimes. So we will hand these out, and then he is welcoming, there's 503. He is welcoming feedback from the board on those as those policies are coming due for review.
Are you
When will
guys-
these policies be reviewed?
What's that?
When will the policies be reviewed?
I'll have to check the date. Every policy's assigned a date. So I can tell you that those are coming, which is probably February if I was, but I have to check the exact date of when it's due.
So we need to have a recommendation by the next meeting.
In fact, they may say on there.
Should say the top.
The same top.
The only date that I see is 5/9 of 2019.
Yeah.
I'll
Is that
tell you
the
quick.
development or the last revision?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
This one.
I did, but just to make sure I know exactly which one.
All right,
I'm
great.
sorry, thank you.
Here, you can have mine.
I've flooded.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they are coming due March, April-ish, so by February is
Thank you.
plenty.
Is the board fine with reviewing this in their free time and being prepared to discuss this at the February meeting? Cause I'll let Odell know to put that on the agenda. if that's
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Are you just needing the name to yourself?
Oh, yeah, well, that way I can remember. Not to stop.
Nobody gets to know. but yeah. Thank you, sir.
And then the last document I brought is,
Yes, this is
okay,
Joshua.
still learning. Is the de-escalation training that, the list that I provided you guys, I don't know, several months ago of all the de-escalation training.
Mhm.
The question was posed of how many members have been through all that. So we went back and calculated all that, so it's quasi the same document with different numbers attached to it.
Oh, well, there you go.
Sorry, I just made it more confusing.
Is it Joshua or Josh?
Josh.
Perfect, Josh. If that answers your question, you can let us know after you've reviewed it. You don't have to do it right now.
Thank you.
And that is all.
Can you discuss the report disclosures allowed from WPD to the CRV, specifically the summaries that the subcommittee was waiting on before we could do?
Thank you.
And what's the question?
So I have heard that the reason why we haven't been able to get the more robust summaries that were in the Jensen Hughes was because we were waiting on a recommendation from legal as to how much information could be included in those summaries. And I was under the impression that legal had made that determination.
Yes.
And so we just need to know, what are the parameters so we know what to ask for, so that the subcommittee can begin reviewing cases again to send recommendations to the full board.
You want me to answer? So, so when I sent the current summaries that you guys get, the little tiny, the recommendation was that was the max summary, nothing more. I mean, it can always be less, I assume, but that's not helpful. So nothing more than that. So when we look at those summaries, we really stretch them as much as we can, cause I get it. I mean, you're looking at those and trying to decide what it is. So I understand that. But because of the litigation, that was the max of those summaries. So it'd be the same with the old cases or the previous cases would be the same. The summary is the summary. I don't know how to better help decide if you should still review those or not.
So I guess my ask is, since that was the Jensen Hughes recommendation, will that be annotated on the dashboard that per, however you want to phrase it, to not put risk on the city and to be accurate though, per that litigation, we're not able to implement that Jensen Hughes recommendation?
I'll have to check. I don't do the Jensen Hughes board, but my understanding is there's only 3 categories to even pick from, but I'm.
Well, is it specific
Not the subject
recommendation that the
matter.
CRB either get the complaint form that has the original complaint form or a more robust summary with more information? So if we are not able to do that for whatever reason, I think that needs to be told to the public that stop expecting that, because the city's not able to provide that, for whatever the reason is.
About in the dashboard?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll have to check. I'm
Okay.
not I don't do the dashboard, so I am not the subject matter expert in that, so I don't want to speak of what can go in there and what can't.
I just know that that's something that we've been talking about for like 2 years, so I just wanted everyone to know. It's been decided what we get is what they're able to give us, so. Gregory and Joe, we will have to kind of figure out how we wanna do this moving forward for the subcommittee, so.
Because I just don't know how we can make a meaningful determination based upon that limited amount of information. It seems to me that, and I don't know much about this lawsuit, and maybe I need to talk with Jennifer privately at some point just to get a better understanding of what that's all about, but, to do a meaningful review of any of these matters. I mean, even what we get here at the meeting is, you know, it's good information. You know, and I know we can't have, you know, a 6-day trial on every complaint, but, the question is how do we fulfill that function, in a meaningful way, based upon what is probably 1% of the information. And it's prepared, with all due respect to everybody, I mean, it's prepared by, we don't even know for sure, I mean, under your purview, but I mean, I don't know who's prepared that, what's been.
The summaries?
Yeah,
Professional standards prepares them.
okay, yeah, and so,
Can
yeah.
you tell us more about the lawsuit that you mean? I don't know what lawsuit is keeping.
I'll let Jennifer say whatever she can or feels comfortable.
Oh, public record.
I'm trying to think
Yeah.
which ones that we're referencing on.
I don't know what.
We have a lot, we have so many.
Okay.
I'll have to get back.
From what I looked up, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the FOP had an issue with information that was provided because it could be brought back to personal identifiable information.
That's correct.
Okay. And the city did a settlement, so there was no winning or losing, there was a settlement, and in the settlement, it was, we get this amount of language, from what I understand.
How long ago was this? I don't even know. Is this new? Was it a year ago, 2 years ago?
I'll have to get back to a date.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to see, I don't know, was this it was public record, the settlement? Or if you could find out, because I mean, I'd like to see the language, I mean,
You can go look at the court document.
there's very little. I mean, the summaries that we had when we were here a couple months ago, the subcommittee, it was, you know, I mean, we couldn't make a determination, I couldn't make a determination based upon that information as to whether or not, you know, to recommend on most of them, whether the board look at them or not. You know, and we are so far behind, it's not even, I mean, there's part of me that, you know, I wonder if we just need to start fresh, because, you know, what happened a year and a half ago may not do us a whole lot of good, especially when you look at, I mean, it's like a lot of things, you know, we get a whole new batch every month, and I'm trying to go through these and see if I can see some repetitive, situations, I guess, complaints and results. And, you know, based upon the information, and, you know, I'm not wanting to sit down and spend 60 hours a week doing this, but, so maybe if we can take a look at that, and maybe I can chat with
Happy to,
Jennifer and
happy.
get an idea of what maybe more we can get.
And I'd actually like to table this discussion so the subcommittee can meet and bring some sort of recommendation back to this body. Is that okay with you too?
Sounds good.
Okay. I just wanted him to be able to like get it out there so we could move on.
Can we go back to these real quick? Cause I think we went to the review of,
We're gonna review these on our own and talk about them next.
I
week.
have a question about
Oh, okay.
reviewing them. So what does the law say? How often do you guys go back and review your own policies? It sounds like you're about to do that. What does the law say? How often? And I guess these are the actual dates they started. The revised dates, or? Well, that one's a revised.
One of them just had to.
So there's not a law that says you have to review a policy it's
And-
just at the discretion of whatever the organization feels.
And you guys have a policy?
We have every policy has a date. So some of them, if it's like uniforms, it may be every 2 years. If it, I don't know, is, use of force, something more, it may be every year on this date. So they're all, and then they're assigned specific, like I don't review a policy in theory that's not in my job description, right? It should go to someone that's in there. The domestic violence policy should be reviewed by the bureau captain that controls domestic violence, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
All right, is there any more board discussion before we call for public comment? All right, so if anyone would like to make public comment or ask questions, you may speak for 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
Okay, folks, I'm gonna do my best in 3 minutes. This may be my last time to see you folks for a while. This kind of information is just so frustrating. We have tried for years to get some summaries that made some sense. I don't know how you can figure out any of this. You need a magnifying glass, one. And it just repeats the same phrases over and over. Like Joe says, you can't make anything out of this. Jensen Hughes' report said that we should be able to see the written complaint. Not getting it, never have. You have people who have been asked this particular case that you're gonna look at today, the 21 ESB. We asked for that to be reviewed in July of last year, 2023, and then 2024. It's been drug out and drug out. I don't see the person that was arrested for not moving fast enough from Old Town here tonight to even speak. So how are you going to know what actually went down when you go into executive session? All this is a real orchestrated effort to keep information from you. There's no transparency and no accountability. I don't know how else to say it. Now, each of you have integrity. Each of you know why you're here. And I hope that you will say, wait a minute, this isn't working. We've got to be more transparent. Please provide us with some information that we can actually use. Because right now you're flying blind. And the data you got on racial profiling, this kind of report, my God, folks, there's a big problem right here in River City. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kaplan. All right, our next board agenda item is the PSB case review. Anyone wanting a case review, just present it, or you can allow the subcommittee to make a recommendation on it. We'll just vote, it'll be majority vote for case approval to go through. Does anyone have any that they would like to present, or do you need a few minutes to read? I have 5 that I'd like to present, that were citizens brought forward, and I just want to make sure they're supposedly on a list, and I don't have that list, so I'm just gonna say them. This is Miss Colette that has asked for these, and I asked her to email the CRB, but she texted me, so I have 23 PSB 5605. 5605, 23 PSB 5775, 23 PSB 5774, 23 PSB 6557, 22 PSB 3759, and 20 PSB 4821. And those are a citizen asking for it, so I don't have any on the current. I'd have to look through it.
So these are on that older list that.
I think we had
That
a,
hadn't been,
yeah, I think we had a list that I don't have. I don't know if I didn't save it or if it's in a notebook I can't find, but we've had a list of previously requested PSB numbers. And I believe they were split into citizen asked for it and board asked for it. And so I am asking that these 5 get put on the top of the list since they are citizen requested. Previously, not, this was last year. I think they came in like July, maybe August and asked.
Are you just wanting to vote in majority? Are you asking for a second motions?
Just a majority approval, so.
I don't know that that's required, is it?
It says right here, board vote on each case with majority approval, so I guess I'll make a motion to approve all of her cases to be added to the list.
I don't think I mean, I'd like to leave this up to Jennifer, but I think that the ordinance, and I'm trying to find this other thing, but I believe the ordinance, and we can have a vote if you want to, but I think the ordinance says the board member wants a case reviewed. And I think the kind of procedure was, understanding was at least it would go to the subcommittee, any one individual board member, but I could be
That's
wrong.
right. And I think I suggested that, or it was asked of me, should we do this? And I said, it's clear for the minutes then if there's a vote.
Right.
That's
Makes
one
sense.
thought, although it'd be clear for the minutes if somebody suggested anyway.
I think the recommendation was if you want it clearly stated in the minute, it needs to be a motion, which is why I was trying to read it off the agenda.
right here.
So if you guys are okay with that recommendation, I can make a motion so that it's noted in the minutes.
Both things are true anyway. I mean, yes, somebody can pull one off, but I think that's, just to make sure it's recorded.
Okay.
That's what I thought I
But-
advised.
Then I will make a motion that the 5 PSB numbers that I just requested. 6, 23, 23, sorry, 6, thank you. I did hash marks and didn't count those. The 6 that I just announced be added to the top of the list since the citizen brought them forward. Doesn't mean they have to be reviewed next month, just that they go to the top of the list.
Just for clarification, when you're saying list, the list that the subcommittee reviews or the list as a,
It would be like, maybe 3 go on unless there's other, I think this is the last of the citizen requested ones
okay,
that I'm aware of. So it would be like maybe 3 in February and 3 in March.
top of the list for executive session?
Yes.
Okay.
And have we finished the list we already had? Is that tonight the last one that we already had a list?
I believe these 3 are the last of the citizen requested. Not board requested.
None of these are citizen requested.
None of these are the ones that Dr. Chapel brought, or any of these the ones that Dr. Chapel brought?
Well,
I think the 21 is.
21 is not the involved citizen request. It
Correct.
was brought up by a different citizen, yeah.
I guess my ask would be, can we get that list again so that I'm not wrong? And then if there are other citizen requests that are prior to this, then my motion is to have them added to the list to be reviewed as soon as possible, based on the priority that already exists on that list. So if there's still 5 requests that a citizen brought forward, these would obviously be after that. If there's not any more citizen, I would ask that they be put to the top, so. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor of passing the motion to add these PSB numbers to the list? For
Aye.
review?
And you said 5 again, I just wanna.
6,
Six.
thank you. And I'll provide you those numbers again.
Okay, I have, okay,
Okay.
yeah, that works.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Any other case review to be brought forward?
I don't have any case review. However, I didn't see a recommendation agenda items to be added to the next meeting. So I don't know if this is an appropriate spot. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, if this is the appropriate time, I got one.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if this is an
I don't see
appropriate.
that on the agenda either. If we can get through the current agenda, I will make sure that we do that before we adjourn.
And at some point, can we discuss the length of time for each of these items? What is a time frame that we should expect for these? The two meetings I've attended, and I'm not sure that it is an encompassment of how many meetings have run over. And so I think it would be helpful to know that the anticipated time for each section is how long, so that we can provide appropriate case reviews to fit that time slot.
I think that is a good discussion to be had because we are filling up our agenda with trainings and executive session and then board agenda items and public agenda. So I think we're gonna have a discussion on, are we reviewing cases every month, every other month? Do we do trainings off months that we don't do executive session?
Is this, and I don't want to volunteer anybody's time, but just for my own peace of mind, is this board able to do bi-monthly meeting, like twice a month? Because like you say, we're running out of time and we got a lot of ground to cover. Are we legally allowed to do that?
I
don't know
think
if
they
we
used
want
to do that.
You have to meet once every 3 months.
Shall meet at least quarterly.
Okay.
We're not bound by how many meetings we had, we're bound by how few meetings we can have.
Great.
You must meet at least quarterly. You can meet more often.
So if the board determines we want to have a meeting that's regular business and then a meeting that's only executive session, that would be appropriate. Okay.
Yeah, we're just-
Why don't you call a meeting, go into it. Call the meeting.
And as long as we have a quorum before we go into executive
It's a regular
session, that's
meeting.
all that matters. Okay.
And I would just keep in mind that until a few months ago, we didn't have any meetings because most of you weren't here. And so those who were before you weren't showing up. And so I think we've now at least maybe hit the first step in our objective, is that we actually have
Quorum.
enough people to actually have a meeting. It was, that was part of the reason why, among a lot of other things, why we're so far behind is because there were a lot of meetings where there just weren't enough people to do anything.
Yeah.
Couldn't even go into executive session. So just, we might be making some progress.
Well, and I think we'll end up talking about the bylaws formation committee. And so when we get there, we can address kind of what are the goals, plans, objectives, and that might help with timing.
If you, however, would like to make a motion about additional meeting, that would be when we're setting up agenda for the next meeting.
Great. I'll hold that thought.
All right, so recommended action is to receive and file the PSD case review motion, and we will move on to, I'm sorry, is there public comment on this item? Okay, we'll move on to the board agenda. This is the first item, is to appoint the subcommittee for the bylaws and officer role. I don't have any guidance on how many people should be on that subcommittee, what the name of that officer role should be, and I don't remember the discussion around it, to be perfectly honest, so.
I'm interested in being on this subcommittee. I don't have a good background or understanding, and I would like to clarify an understanding through development of bylaws. If anybody has ideas, information, and guidance and has more history, that would probably be.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe Shanita, and I could be wrong, but I believe Shanita said that there is a outline or a basis or something that
The
they
last
might-
committee.
There was a draft of bylaws prepared years ago by former chairman Jay Fowler. That has never been acted on, but it's a starting point if you want to start there, or you could start from scratch. Shanita may have forwarded that. That's all I know.
Okay.
I'm very into having a draft to start because we don't have to like it all or we could love it all, but the recommendations to have how Gregory has been doing business with the public around notifications and what that looks like, those came from recommendations from the previous board members. So having a starting place is always helpful. I have also expressed interest in bylaws. I've helped a couple organizations write bylaws. It's very wordsmithy, picky, like tiny little, and I actually really like that. So I don't have to chair it. I'm just happy to be on it. Is there anyone interested in chairing that?
Oh.
His hand is up.
This is how you
No,
guys
no,
are.
no, no, no,
That
no.
was what you did.
I've already been voluntold one time.
Is
I'm
it a
not doing it.
subcommittee or is it a task force to complete bylaws?
It is so it would be an ad hoc committee actually, because once the bylaws are written, there would be no need for this committee. Am I correct? Is everyone?
That was my
on board with
question.
that? Okay.
I don't mind chairing an ad hoc committee.
Okay.
Because there's an
It's a finite period. It's not
Okay.
indefinitely.
Unless somebody else would like to chair.
Thank you, Patty.
Do we have a nomination for chair? I nominate Stephanie Hicks for chair of the bylaws.
I
Committee.
say.
All in favor?
Boy, we go fast on those.
I'm telling you. I know Greg was secretary.
Somebody wants to do work.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, appointment to the subcommittee. Is there anyone interested in being on the subcommittee? Gregory, I have expressed interest. Anyone else? Okay,
Stephanie and I go way back.
then I nominate Gregory Van Dyke, Faith Martin, Sarah Mata, and Stephanie Nix to be the bylaws subcommittee. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion? Nope. Okay.
And
I
then
should have done discussion first.
clarification, like this subcommittee can meet and do we have to make minutes? Like what do we have to do to comply with the Kansas Open
Thank
Record
you for
Act?
asking. You do not need to create minutes. I do think you are a subordinate group of a governing body, that appointed group. So I think you're subject to Kansas Open Meetings Act in a strict term, strict definition. I think if you have meetings, it'd be nice to announce them publicly so we can make those open.
And for example, when the subcommittee met, we didn't do Zoom, we didn't do anything like that. We just
You
let
do not have to do that.
them know that we were meeting here at this time on this date, and we just kind of left it at that. And nobody showed up to our meeting. So I think it's just the notification part, correct? All right, perfect. So I think, and because it's 4 people, we're not violating.
That's right. It doesn't form an issue for this board.
So if you want to send out an email to the 4 of us that wanted to be on this committee asking, do we want to meet in person? Do we want to meet on Zoom? Whatever. You can set that up and we'll take it.
I will get with you and
Okay.
obtain information.
All right, and now, wow, we did that one really fast. Good job, guys. The PPMC report for Citizens Review Board. Is that on the website yet?
I'm on the Jensen Hughes review now.
Sorry, the CRB website. Because if it's not, you can put that in your request to Shanita and then everyone can read that report. Because we weren't doing a report out on that, I believe. We were just ensuring that the document was available to the Citizens Review Board.
I was more concerned with the fact that we had not heard an update per the Jensen Hughes report of following the last time that the PPMC met.
Does anybody know, have they met at all? Are they, yeah,
The strategic planning
Yeah.
process, I haven't heard anything.
I think it's done.
Well, the Jensen Hughes report still has it marked as in progress.
well, they've never reported anything
Well, then don't
else.
take my word.
Yeah,
for
I
it.
don't think, I think it's on a long hold is what that's my
That is
impression.
what I was told by Assistant City Manager, is that it was paused and that they would let us know what it looked like moving forward. So I
The
think,
chairman may know more about that,
Because he-
but that's something probably to ask again next month, and if not, then I would say at that point, I may not be here next month, but I would suggest that at that point, somebody needs to at least ask the city or Shanita or somebody to find out what's going on. I mean, there was a contract.
Can I ask
Somebody
for
was paying something.
clarification on what PPMC stands for, please?
Public Policy
Management
Management.
WSU group.
Can we make, it might be nice, because that's like my 3rd one I haven't known. So can we, on our board agendas, have in parentheses what the acronyms stand for?
You wanna make
I-
a motion?
Do I need a motion?
No.
I don't know.
I think it's just,
Okay.
I just need clarification
let
because
Shanita
we're
know.
all over here going, what's that stand for? No one knows. So again, what was it? I didn't write it down.
Public policy, and that's where it stopped.
it's the Public Policy Management Center at WSU. They, right now, they hosted the homeless task force.
Right. And they started the process. I mean, they came and met with us,
Yes.
In May.
was it May? Okay, yeah, and Sarah's got the copy of their. And then shortly after it, and again, I know from our perspective, we were having problems getting enough people to show up at the meetings to have even a meeting, and so there was really not a driving force from this board to, find out what their recommendations were or what their conclusions were. I think we're now at a point where that probably does need to we need to either be told where they're at or why nobody will tell us where they're at.
So I am sorry, I don't have the history that it appears other individuals have. This report was asked for by this committee and Wichita State as a third party.
Actually, and again, I don't remember all the details, Jennifer.
Yeah, the city contracted with PPMC to conduct a strategic planning process for this board. And the work began, there were some group meetings, there were some individual meetings with PPMC. They came to a meeting or two. I don't know where the status is either.
And when did that start?
That started this previous board put together a subcommittee to talk about strategic planning. Once that subcommittee made a recommendation to the full board, it was, okay, now we have to hire a consultant. PPMC was the consultant that was chosen. That group determined who should be on that group. So it was mostly people that are not on the board anymore. And a few people from the public and people from the city and WPD. They provided a template. They did like an appreciative inquiry where they asked a lot of questions, but no formal, from the report that I saw, no formal recommendations were made because I don't think they finished the process. So it was halted, I think, in May when it was supposed to be done because there was a new board and they wanted to get input from the new board. So I can certainly reach out to our chair and to the city manager's office because they're the ones that actually contracted with
probably a good idea.
PPMC and have that be on our agenda next month. In the interim, the report as it stands should be posted to our site.
Which I have added to the
Okay.
list.
I do have just a disclosure. WSU has just reorganized. I am now part of the Office of Community Partnerships. Of which PPMC is another department within. I do not report to Misty. We are on equal levels within the whatever, but just full disclosure. We are part of the same office at WSU if that causes any issues.
I think.
I feel like I'm disclosing that every place I go now.
No, you're fine.
Good to do.
I think that the bylaws committee, subcommittee potentially could take the lead on this. Because those recommendations should be roped into future goals and agendas and bylaws. I don't know what you guys think about that, but.
I would say that bylaws and goals are separate
Very
items.
Separate items.
I would
And
like to see
think
some bylaws and goals. I think both are important, but I want to make sure that bylaws are how we're ruled, governed, thoughts, and then we would have goals annually or maybe more.
And
Sorry, I
I think that goals would fall under a subcommittee. Hopefully, I would think we all need to weigh in on those.
I misspoke. I meant the recommendations or whatever the report has that would inform, that might be where we start until the strategic plan process picks back up.
Thank you.
That was sorry, I misspoke. Okay, so I guess, I will take the action to follow up with city manager's office and our chair to discuss what next steps are. Otherwise, we will receive and file the report to be added to the website.
Will do, and we will have that on the agenda as an update for next month.
Maybe, let me,
Okay.
I will shoot for February.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on from the board agenda, I gotta get the full paper out. I move that the Citizens Review Board recess into executive session for.
So there's 3 videos, 5 till 7.
Yep.
Or there's 3 cases. 2 of them don't have video. But the main one that we were gonna do last month has 7 and a 20-minute video. Not that you need to see all of it, but definitely probably can't do any of them in 5 minutes. So what do you guys want to?
Are we gonna get thrown out of here at 7?
No,
Library
Okay,
closed today. You will hear
okay.
the voice of God, 7:45.
Okay, all right.
so let me ask the board then, are we going to have quorum to be able to move into executive session? Does anyone have to leave at 7 o'clock?
No, but I have to leave by 7:30.
Okay, then how about we go for 7:30 and we do what we can do until 7:30?
Will we be able to set the agenda meeting without quorum? Or the agenda for next meeting without quorum?
Yeah, I think we could set the agenda, because that's Odell technically in charge of doing the agenda with Captain, actually, with Shanita now, so I'll be able to take all your recommendations down to pass them along. Okay.
Is she the only one that has to leave at 7:30?
You still have quorum, don't you?
We would still have quorum.
Oh, there we go.
I just am concerned that we always run long and we have a lot of city employees here who have lives as well. I'd like to be respectful of them. I just kind of feel like this is, when we set times, we need to stick to our times.
Which I think is something that is being possibly motioned moving forward. So I don't know, realistically speaking, I don't think we'll be able to get to all of these today, and it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, 21 PSB 2678 was the first one that was added to the list from the last time, and then
These other two I requested just to see what a sustained case looked like. So
Okay.
they're not, it's
These
more
are-
a learning experience than anything else. But I don't know. I think we've got to learn to stick to our meeting, whether that.
I think 3 is a lofty goal anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
Agreed.
1 feels like they always take 20+
Well,
minutes.
Are
I
you
mean,
proposing that we end the meeting at 7, or are you proposing that we just? do
I would like
one?
to remind everyone that we had technical difficulties and that took up 15 minutes. 20
Agreed.
minutes, yeah.
Agreed, but I still think we have to be respectful of the time of these people who are required to be here with us. Like, I just, as a human being, find that
with that.
serious and.
And I think that's a piece or a
Disrespectful.
portion of where my request for allotted times or an agenda with anticipated times. I also believe that we probably need to make sure that we are sticking to that to maintain it, or we need to look at the amount of time we've allotted. We're unproportionally balanced, and I'm not sure after just 2 or 3 meetings, which way is the best way to go at this point.
But I think there was conversation if we did alternative meetings where
Yeah,
we
like-
just review and then that way we don't have to worry about, it being closed, that it's just us reviewing some of these, that it doesn't necessarily take away from our meeting time.
Do you mean 2 a month then?
Potentially,
And
but-
potentially, or however we can get on track where we feel more confident in how we're reviewing and what
Right.
we're
I mean,
reviewing.
we spent an hour basically on the training today with the technical difficulties, but like, that's a big portion of our meeting time.
Well, and that was that was my idea, was because we had all new board members and I didn't feel, even with, a lot of years dealing with the police department every day, that I understood enough about the policies and procedures. I feel much better than I did. I mean, I've been through the academy now and I've heard the presentations and so we could probably reduce those somewhat. I think the other thing we have to keep in mind is if we have extra meetings, then we're also putting additional heat on the staff, which, it gives one thing if it's before 5, but when it's 5 to 7, I know that a few of them are used to working a little after 5, but at the same time, that's another burden on the staff, so we have to keep in mind, and I don't know how this,
So I would
City attorney.
request.
Right, it would
we
seem like if
table
we
this.
did the executive.
You also have to get a
session-
quorum.
Right.
that's
Well,
true, you gotta
yeah,
have people, yeah.
but an executive session meeting where it's just us could maybe be before.
You
I
still
don't
have to
know.
open the meeting, I think, and you have to go into.
You
executive
do,
session
but
and all
we
that,
feel less
gotcha,
like,
yeah.
hey,
If
people
they
need
know-
time to talk. and
If they
all.
know that nothing's going on except that pretty much, then maybe, they may not want to show up.
I don't know. I am one who's really respectful of the time, and if we set the time aside, I think as a board, we have to be cognizant of that.
It's just, there's one box and we've got more stuff to put in that box than there is room in the box, and so it's tough, but okay.
So
Anyway.
I'll go back to my question before I started saying this motion. Cause I have to move to go into executive session. It's a formal motion.
I'd like to go till 7:30 and see where we're at. And we
So
can
is everyone
decide.
fine with 30 minutes and we get done what we get done?
I would actually propose that we just table and I can make a formal motion, but I propose that we table the last 2 and just focus on the first one because that was the most recent one. And I think it would be, in terms of time as well, disrespectful to continue to prolong a case that has already been.
Yeah, go ahead and make a motion.
Although again, this was not a citizen who was involved who made this request, which I also think.
Fair, but it
Yes.
still came from a citizen, and
Agreed,
so
but
I
I
think
think we
that
need
is
to-
important to note. So I move that we table 24 PSB 2606 and 24 PSB 4946 to the February meeting, and that we, how much can I include?
I think you just stop right there.
Yeah.
And then, if I may, and then get a second vote on that, and then you will do the motion for executive session.
Well, I will second, but then I will also ask if there's any discussion before we take a vote. All right, so there's been a motion to
And
table.
I'll say defer, if you would change the word to defer.
To
It's a different
defer,
meaning.
okay.
Yeah, to defer.
Yeah, because then we have to make a motion to untable.
Thank you, thank you.
Let's not do that. So there's a motion on the table to defer 24 PSB 2606 and 4946 to February. And there's a second, all in favor. Aye, okay. So now I will say, I move that the Citizens Review Board recess into executive session for 20 minutes, or 25 minutes.
We have to come back to adjourn.
Cause I'm gonna say come back at 7:30. If it's just one case, 25 minutes should be
Sorry, my
fine.
sticky note is from last week. This video is a minute.
Okay, but we should be able to.
So plus read time.
Okay, then,
20 minutes.
then I'm gonna say 20 minutes. I move that the Citizens Review Board recess into executive session for 20 minutes to review information relating to PSV case 21 PSV 2678 pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2 to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel, to protect the privacy interests of an identifiable individual. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the executive session will begin at 7:05 PM and end at 7:25 PM. The meeting will resume in this room.
Yeah, and I'm.
Good job.
Oh, yeah. I'm not taking that one home.
Okay,
This
so
far behind.
do you have,
Someone that we should have reviewed in like a
you have
year.
all the documents picked up?
No.
Okay. So, I
Yes.
moved to find that the
We're back from executive session.
oh, sorry,
Yeah.
we have returned from executive action,
Executive session.
executive session, no binding action was taken. We find that the conduct of becoming insubordination, unnecessary use of force and reporting requirements were not violated in whatever this PSB is, 21 PSB 2678. There will be no report. The board will take no action because ICAT training and de-escalation training has been implemented in the interim since this complaint was first made.
Second.
Second, is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Excellent. All right, last agenda item.
We're missing one of the executive summary.
Ask for a vote.
I
I
think
think it's me, but.
Okay, so before we get to
Ask whether anybody would oppose.
oh, I'm sorry, I did all in favor, all opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion passes. I would just like to, before we adjourn, talk about, the agenda for next time, so we can give Odell, some ideas of what we'd like to see on it. So far, I have, the, city manager and Odell conversation to discuss the PPMC recommendations to be put on the agenda. I have the 503 and 504 call. Sorry, we're trying to take the agenda. I have 503 and 504 policy reviews to be put on the agenda. And that's in May. I wrote that down. So just those two for February.
I'd like to propose that we do an update for the bylaws. Status of the bylaws,
Oh, the,
an update of the status of the bylaw ad hoc.
bylaws. Okay, so it'll be under the subcommittee updates.
Yeah.
Because the subcommittee will
Okay.
meet again, so there'll be, I'll just have a subcommittee report
Okay.
section. That should probably be a standing agenda item. Okay, subcommittee reports.
I would like to ask that we receive the block license plate reader policy to be reviewed in the interim and then discussed in our March meeting. And if city or WPD has it at the time, the working flock raven policy.
So pull the Falcon policy to understand how the overlap works between Falcon and Raven.
That and just help craft the raven policy as well, since I understand that that is still in the works following last week's meeting.
Both policies?
Yes, please.
Okay. The current Raven policy, because I know we went to the meeting where they're talking about Falcon. No,
No, they're talking about
strike that,
raven.
reverse it.
Yeah,
We want to review the Falcon policy because they're in process of Raven.
yes.
Okay.
Now, will we have enough time to do that if we have some cases to review? Are we gonna be able to look at multiple policies
My-
Maybe training on the schedule for next.
and those?
I don't think we have a training on the schedule for next meeting.
This will serve as a training, I think.
And my hope is that they give us this and then we talk about it in March, so it shouldn't take much time at all.
Thing.
So,
Get reading and take.
If I can ask you guys a question, if we had to break up the meetings into like categories where every quarter we do, this is just a suggestion. Seems like we have a lot of policies on the table we want to review. There's a lot of PSV cases we want to review, and then there's training that we need and documentation and subcommittee reports. Instead of having every month we do that, how would you feel about like 1 month we focus on policy review and recommendation? 1 month is a closed session where we do executive committee, knock out 2 hours worth of cases. And then another meeting would be our standard board training and subcommittee reports or something along those lines. It's just I'm just throwing it out there because there's a you have a very proper concern that we're not thinking about all the rest of the body that's with us and our own time, and the subcommittees having to put together their work times as well. So what do you guys think about that?
My only concern with that is that then we're not making solid progress on the bylaws and the things that the subcommittee is tackling that are important to our overall mission. So I could see, you know, maybe if it's a 2-hour meeting, we set aside 90 minutes for whatever the focus is, and then we have a half hour of the general.
Oh, the board agenda that's like, God, what is our current agenda? I know you have to leave, I'm trying to hurry. Where it would be public agenda, the new business as far as the police department report, and then subcommittee reports. That's a standing agenda, and then we specialize.
That's what I
on
would suggest.
Other times they do like a training 1 month, do executive session 1 month to knock out cases. Like every other month then?
I have a substitute, I guess, motion or suggestion is that perhaps the third Thursday, we follow our routine, the training sessions, public agenda, new business, read out board agenda, the read out from subcommittee, and then the fourth Thursday is exclusively executive session.
I can't do third Thursdays. I think a lot of us have other.
I'm on the racial programming board, we meet third Thursdays.
Four boards.
Yeah.
Second Thursday is a different, it could be the first Friday, a day of the month, but twice a month.
I'm not for twice a month, but go ahead and discuss.
I mean,
I don't
I will
have
be
the
having
days.
3 meetings a month now just for this board, because we meet, and then the board meets. And if we do a better job on the recommendations that we bring from the subcommittee, we may not have as much executive session of PSBs to review.
I think there's a lot for us to do, but I also think establishing bylaws, which will then direct goals, which will then direct what we need to do. I truly believe we need to get this board caught up. I believe that due to lack of committee members, the board is not meeting what it's intended to do, but we also don't have bylaws to know what we're intended to do at this point. So having another meeting seems like we're having another meeting, still lost in the woods before we find a compass. And I agree with you, we have a lot to do.
Right, but I just also like, but I also on one hand disagree because it took us an hour to go through traffic data and any presentation we're gonna get, it's gonna take an hour. Like, there's no way in my mind, I think that we can hold that to 20 minutes, no matter what we're seeing.
So is there a way to,
Maybe we extend the meeting by an hour if that's what we decide is necessary, but I think we need to determine what our goals are.
And I would support that more, where at least we've actually set aside that time and people are expecting to be here rather than running over every.
How about this then? I make a motion that we extend the meetings till 8 PM for the next 3 months. And if we're not caught up by then we're gonna have to just we're gonna have to fight it. Like we
Why
can't.
don't we try it once?
Yeah.
Let's see if that works.
We gotta make
A
sure
motion
Chairman-
for
the
one.
motion has already been made.
Chairman's not here.
The motion has already been made though, right? So we have to vote on that?
Unless anybody would like to make a substitute motion.
Was there?
You have a friendly
I
amendment.
didn't hear, I didn't hear a second.
I don't think we asked. So.
No, we
Is
didn't.
there a second?
To which
Okay, it
motion?
dies.
To which-
So,
No.
to the first motion that I said. So if that motion dies, then I would redo my motion to say that the February meeting be 5 to 8 PM.
Second.
Any discussion?
If it finishes early, can we leave?
Yes. All in favor?
always have.
Hold on,
Yeah,
discussion.
discussion.
Never happens.
If we
Yeah.
run over the 8 o'clock time, then do we move to twice a
We
month?
can't because the library closes at 8.
Are
Okay,
we in the library next?
Yeah.
we are.
I think we're in the library
All year.
definitely,
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
Indefinitely.
Yeah,
Okay.
is that a
Figure out how
good
to drive
choice,
here.
by the way? Do we need to make other?
Board's decision and the staff, I mean, and working with staff, I think.
Is there a different
Well, I'm just
room?
concerned about the videos and the like.
I don't know if Shanita booked this room because it was all she could get at
Yeah.
last minute notice or not. So that could be a question to
This is the
Shanita.
only room that is available for free.
Okay, then, yeah, this is the room.
Mm,
So there was a motion, a second, there was discussion. Would we like to call the question? Okay, all in favor of meeting next month from 5 to 8 PM?
Aye.
Bye.
All opposed?
nay.
Okay. Motion passes, and I have these agenda items to pass along, and Greg, yes.
Your motions that I sent back out to the CRB still were not added to tonight's agenda when they were supposed to be, so.
Motions sent or added to the agenda.
And everybody should have those in the emails.
Yep.
Because I have sent those out.
I'll follow up with Odell and, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Bye. That's what Becky does with all
And
her
who gets
dad.
these?
Who does get these?
This is.
Oh, right here. He's gonna handle it.
If you got a detailed